The smell of salt and freedom filled my lungs as I turned the Porsche onto the Pacific Coast Highway. The California sun, a brilliant artist, painted the ocean in shimmering hues of gold and sapphire. On the passenger seat, a bouquet of Alara's favorite stargazer lilies sat expectantly, their sweet perfume a stark contrast to the sterile scent of the new car. This was it, the grand gesture, the culmination of 10 years of grinding, of late nights at the architecture firm, of sacrificing weekends to build a life she deserved, a life we deserved. Our 5th wedding anniversary was next week, and I had orchestrated the perfect surprise. I told Alara I had a business trip to Chicago, a necessary evil. In reality, I was driving to Malibu, to the beach house I'd secretly bought and furnished over the last 6 months. It was her dream, a whisper she'd shared on our second date, watching the sunset over Santa Monica. "One day, Alex," she'd said, her head on my shoulder, "a little house right there, where we can hear the waves from our bed." I had never forgotten. She thought she was on a yoga retreat in Ojai with her friends. "A weekend of zen and detox before our anniversary," she'd texted, complete with a yoga emoji. I smiled, thinking of the look on her face when she'd find me, not in Chicago, but on the deck of her dream home, champagne on ice. I pictured her running into my arms, the joyful tears, the confirmation that all my hard work had been worth it. Love can make you an optimist, but it can also make you a fool. I had always been the former. I trusted Alara implicitly. When she reconnected with her college ex, Mark, a few years ago, I hadn't blinked. "We were kids, Alex. We're just friends now," she'd assured me, and I believed her. Mark was a struggling artist, a bit of a drifter, and in my mind posed no threat to the stable, beautiful life we had built. I even felt a little sorry for him. He was a ghost from a past she'd outgrown, a past that paled in comparison to the future I was building for us. The final turn onto the private coastal road felt like the last page of a fairy tale. There it was, the house, a modern marvel of glass and cedar perched on the cliffside. My masterpiece for my masterpiece. A wave of pride washed over me. But as I pulled into the gravel driveway, a cold, sharp object seemed to lodge itself in my throat. Alara's white convertible was here. My heart did a confusing flip-flop. Had her retreat ended early? Was this an incredible coincidence? But then I saw the other car, parked behind a thicket of bougainvillea. A dark green Subaru, a relic from another era. Mark's car. Panic, cold and acidic, began to bubble in my stomach. Why were they here? The for sale sign had only been taken down last week. No one knew about this place except me, the realtor, and now apparently Alara and Mark. I killed the engine, the sudden silence amplifying the roar of the waves and the frantic thumping in my chest.
I grabbed the flowers, a pointless, wilting shield, and walked towards the house. The lights were on, casting a warm, inviting glow that felt like a mockery. I didn't go to the front door. Some primal instinct, a self-preservation I didn't know I possessed, guided me around the side, through the manicured sand garden, to the floor-to-ceiling windows of the living room. My breath hitched. My world didn't just crack, it atomized. There they were, Alara and Mark. They weren't arguing. They weren't having a platonic chat. They were sitting on the cream linen sofa, the one I'd spent a month sourcing, a bottle of expensive Pinot Noir on the coffee table beside them. Mark's arm was draped casually around her shoulder. Her head was tilted back, a laugh bubbling from her throat, a sound I thought was reserved for me. He leaned in and kissed her. Not a peck, but a long, lingering kiss full of familiarity and shared history. She melted into it. In the house I bought for her. The house that was meant to be our sanctuary. I felt nothing and everything all at once. The ocean breeze was frigid on my skin. The scent of the lilies in my hand was suddenly cloying, funerary. I watched for another minute, a ghost at my own feast, as he topped off her wine glass and she traced a pattern on his hand. This was not a mistake. This was not a car broke down situation. This was comfortable, practiced, betrayal in its most serene and devastating form. My knuckles were white as I gripped the bouquet. I walked to the front door, the heavy oak portal to my personal hell, and used my key. The lock clicked with an obscene loudness. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. The laughter died instantly. Alara shot up from the couch, her face a canvas of pure shock, her eyes wide with the terror of being caught. Mark, to his credit, just looked annoyed, as if I were an inconvenient interruption. "Alex," Alara stammered, smoothing down her shirt. "Oh my God, what are you doing here? Your flight." "I wanted to surprise you," I said, my voice eerily calm. I walked over to the coffee table and placed the bouquet of lilies down next to the wine bottle. They looked garish and out of place. "Looks like I'm the one who got the surprise." "Alex, this isn't what it looks like," she began, the cheater's classic pathetic anthem. "Mark he was in the area and his car broke down." I finished for her, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. "Really? That's the best you have? His car breaks down and his first call is to you, and you just happen to be at a secret house that nobody knows about. What a coincidence." Mark stood up, puffing out his chest. "Hey man, you should listen to her." "You," I said, turning my full attention to him, the fury finally breaking through the ice. "You have 5 seconds to get out of my house before I call the police and have you removed for trespassing." My voice didn't shake. It was low, hard, and resonant with a certainty that surprised even me.
He looked at Alara, who just stood there, wringing her hands, unable to meet my gaze. He scoffed, grabbed his jacket, and walked out without another word. The sound of his Subaru sputtering to life and roaring away was the sweetest sound I'd heard all day. Now it was just us, the two of us, in a multi-million-dollar monument to my naivete. "How long, Alara?" I asked, the question hanging in the cavernous room. It hasn't been long," she whispered, tears now streaming down her face. "It was a mistake. I love you, Alex. This place, it was overwhelming." Her tears meant nothing to me. They were props. I felt a strange detachment, as if I were a surgeon examining a diseased organ. "I need you to leave," I said. "Pack a bag, go to a hotel. I need to think." She tried to protest, to touch me, but I recoiled as if from a flame. She eventually relented, her sobs echoing as she scurried to the bedroom, emerging minutes later with an overnight bag and leaving me alone in the house of broken dreams. For hours, I just sat there, watching the tide come in as darkness enveloped the coast. The pain was immense, a physical weight on my chest. But underneath it, something else was stirring. Confusion. The story didn't add up. How did she know about the house? Why meet here? It was too brazen, too risky. As I replayed the scene, I remembered she'd left her laptop on the armchair in her haste. A sleek silver machine I'd bought for her birthday. Driven by a desperate need for answers, I opened it. Her email was already logged in. I told myself I wouldn't snoop, but a new email popped up in her inbox as I was about to close it. The sender was someone named Javier Mendoza. The subject line, "Re-finalizing the private sale, Malibu property." My blood ran cold. With trembling hands, I clicked it open. It was a chain of correspondence stretching back 2 months. Emails between Alara, Mark, and a man who was clearly an unlicensed real estate broker. My eyes scanned the words, but my brain struggled to process the magnitude of the treachery. They weren't just having an affair. They were planning to sell my house. The house that I, in a gesture of misguided trust, had put in both our names. They had a buyer, a cash offer. They had been discussing forging my signature on the final transfer documents. They were PDFs of my passport, my driver's license, scanned from my desk at home. There were draft versions of the power of attorney document, with a signature that was a disturbingly accurate copy of my own. The yoga retreat was a lie to get her down here to meet the buyer and finalize the deal while I was supposedly in Chicago. The plan was simple and monstrous. Sell the house, wire the money to an offshore account Mark had set up, and disappear. Together. To Costa Rica, according to their travel itinerary. The cheating wasn't the crime. It was a footnote.
The real betrayal was this cold, calculated plan to strip me of everything and leave me with nothing but a mystery. I wasn't heartbroken anymore. I was incandescent with rage. But it was a cold, clear rage. I didn't smash anything. I didn't scream. I calmly picked up my phone. My first call was to my lawyer. My second was to the police. I spent the next 2 days in that house with a forensic accountant and a detective. We built the case, brick by damning brick. Then I set the trap. I sent Alara a single text. "I can't do this without you. I was too harsh. Please come back to the house. We need to talk. I'm willing to forgive." She took the bait. An hour later, her white convertible pulled into the driveway. Mark's Subaru was right behind her. They must have thought they'd won, that they could manipulate the heartbroken husband one last time before vanishing forever. They walked to the front door. Mark a step behind Alara, a smug look on his face. She knocked softly. I opened the door. I stood there, flanked by 2 uniformed police officers. The look on her face, the swift, brutal transition from hopeful manipulation to sheer, gut-wrenching terror, is an image that will be forever burned into my memory. Mark tried to bolt, but an officer was on him in a second. Alara, I said, my voice devoid of all emotion. Javier Mendoza sends his regards. So does my lawyer. I held up a printed copy of their email chain. Fraud, forgery, grand theft. You weren't just cheating on me. You were trying to erase me. The legal proceedings were swift. The evidence was irrefutable. They both faced serious charges. Months have passed. I'm standing on the deck of the beach house. A for sale sign is hammered into the garden, my for sale sign. The annulment is final. The house feels different now. It's no longer a symbol of betrayal, but a symbol of my survival. I poured my heart and soul into this place for her, but in the end, it was the place where I found out who she really was, and more importantly, who I was. I was not a victim. I was the man who uncovered the truth. I looked out at the vast, indifferent ocean. The sun was setting, painting the sky in brilliant hues of orange and purple. It was beautiful, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was at the beginning of a new chapter, not the end of a sad story. I was free.